Hi, I'm Em.
And my name is Bea.
And this is
Fangirls Anonymous. A quick warning, this podcast is not for kids.
We get into some pretty explicit stuff.
But if you're still with us and into that, welcome.
Hello.
Hello, Em. How are you this fine day?
I am good. This is gonna be a weird episode. It's kind of esoteric in a way, but if you're in fanfiction, you understand what this episode is if you've read the title. It's gonna be about fandoms that we are definitely not in, except for that one fic. The one fic we have read, or the one fic we have enjoyed, and that is it. That's all we really know about the fandom. We're not entrenched in it at all. This is the opposite of a fandom exchange. And we still have our podcast best friend, Misssampo!
Hi, I'm here to talk about my weird singular interests and complain about how things I like don't have more fan fiction.
See, I feel like you have a different idea of or a different goal in mind than Bea and I.
Yes.
Which is, I think, part of what this episode is, maybe, that it's really interesting because why you only have read the one in that fandom really does change, because you've got Misssampo here who's like, look, the fandom's teeny and there just should be more. And then I think, Em, you're coming a lot from the perspective of, I'm just really not in this fandom, but I read this one and it kind of caught me. And I'm in the middle where I'm like, sometimes it's a fandom that I'm like, this isn't too big. And sometimes it's because I popped into that fandom and went, oh, that's really cool. And personally, sometimes it's because I intended at some point to go back and read more.
Yeah.
And I just never, it didn't
And then
mesh.
I didn't.
Yeah, it didn't gel for some reason at that moment in time. So it's kind of fun looking at it, not from a, we dislike this or we're completely ignorant, but there's a lot of reasons why you only have one fic that you've read. And that's almost as interesting as what fic it is.
Oh, yes.
Definitely. And also, I think that maybe the one fic we have read of these fandoms is a good example of the type of fic that you can find within the fandom, especially if it's a tiny fandom. Because we will be talking about a lot of tiny fandoms today. Holy crap.
It also will say a lot about our taste.
Very
especially
true.
Especially if it's like, no, this is the one. I'm not in this fandom, but I'm in this one fic. And then it's like a personality test. It's like, okay, what are you interested in specifically?
Seriously. Yeah. But also, please, if you're listening to this, do not solely base your opinion of our personalities based on these fics, please.
Never do. Never judge someone by what they look like or what kind of fan fiction they read. That'll never give you the full picture.
Absolutely. Oh my god.
They're always freakier.
Okay, so who wants to go first? Oh wait, before we start, we have a fic club. You still have about a
Fic
month
club!
or a couple weeks to do the fic club with us again. It is Play It Again by Metisket. It's a really good fic. You should read it. And then you should send us stuff that you want to send us to our email at mandbepresents@gmail.com. It's a fun fic. We extremely recommend it because it's really good. And it's also sad.
You should read it even if you're not into Teen Wolf, because I'm not into Teen Wolf and I can't stop reading it. Help!
Isn't it so
it's really
good?
It's so good!
It's just, the writing is amazing, and we can't wait to talk about it. We also have a Patreon.
It's beautiful. I've never seen a more perfect Patreon.
No, it's not. But it is there. And I put some effort into it, so that's fun. And it exists. And if you want to exist alongside it, you can. If you don't, then don't exist alongside it. That's also okay. So actually this time, who wants to go first?
I have a fic open right now. One of the fics that we're going to talk about.
I do too. I'm sure, Bea, you are also prepared. We have a big list. This is going to be a really fun episode for us. Hopefully it's good for people to listen to as well.
MB me and just one from each, and then keep going until we run out of fics?
Perfect.
Sounds like
Okay.
a plan.
So my first fic that I am not in the fandom whatsoever was actually a rec from B. Okay, none of the rest of them I have are a rec from B. Well, one is halfway, but you'll see what I mean by halfway later. Danny Phantom. Okay, it's Danny. Danny Phantom.
In all fairness, I'm also really not in this fandom very much, so this is gonna be interesting.
Danny
People are in fandoms I'm in are in Danny Phantom, and so by radiation, I'm in the Danny Phantom fandom.
Yes,
Also,
definitely.
I was a big fan when I was like 10. We don't talk about
Me too.
that.
I had such a crush on Danny. Holy crap! Oh my god.
I just wanted his superpowers.
Well,
the amount of drawings I have of me with ghost powers, it's embarrassing.
Who didn't want ghost superpowers? Obviously, I wanted them too, but I also had a big crush on Danny. I liked him.
He's very cute.
V cute. But this fic that I'm about to talk about is titled Phantom of Truth by Haiju. It's the longest fic, I think, that I have seen of any Danny Phantom fiction. Danny Phantom fan fiction, there we go. But I have not seen a lot of Danny Phantom fan fiction, so
it's weird.
Take that. I'm sure it is, because this one is weird too.
I say it affectionately. I know you guys Danny Phantom fans. None of this is to bag on any fandoms, but
of course.
You have to admit,
none of this
as a unit, we make weird
fic.
Fandom.
Very much. And you kind of squirrel it away in odd corners of the internet, gotta be honest here. Like, you do not centralize on a platform.
Yeah, it's a children's cartoon show from like 2007. Yeah. Okay, like this was right before AO3, so any kind of fic was going to be on like LiveJournal or fanfiction.net or like just a bunch of
Wattpad.
Different like spaces online. Wattpad.
No.
People's own websites.
Wattpad did not really exist.
Wattpad wasn't as Wattpad
I don't know
what time at that time, but and also the audience was young. There weren't, especially in 2007, it wasn't cool for adults to watch cartoons.
Yeah.
It's still kind of not cool, but it's cooler than it was once.
I'm gonna phrase that as the cartoons that were originally for children have gotten better, whereas the quality of cartoons for adults have not changed at all.
Bob's Burgers is pretty good.
Good for them. I haven't seen it.
Yeah, it's better than most because they don't hate each other.
That is not a high bar.
Yeah, that's a really, really low bar.
I know it's not, but it's still pretty funny in my opinion. And this is coming from somebody who abhors Family Guy and any other iteration. I hate those cartoons. They're terrible.
I'm glad we have something in common.
Yeah, the first 9 seasons of Simpsons are pretty awesome. But anyway, so the show's fandom, it felt like it was kind of kneecapped at the beginning because of all of those things that we just talked about. But there is still a good amount of fic out there to be found. The quality of that fic is a little suspect, but that's just what happens when a fandom like this grows the way it did. Phantom of Truth by Haiju is the only fic I've ever read from the Danny Phantom fandom, but it was pretty good. I mean, I finished it.
Sometimes that's all you need.
It's about, sometimes. It's about Danny getting kidnapped by the men in white, the lab coat guys from the show.
They work for the government.
And they work for the government. And being tortured and experimented on scientifically, quote unquote scientifically, by his mother. And she doesn't know that she's actually torturing her own son.
Now I know what this is.
It's rough, and it also talks a lot about like science. Like there's a lot of science in this fic that if you are not interested in science, you might not want to read this one, because it is just a lot of talking about experiments on a ghost. And she's like, why is this ghost reacting strangely to things that other ghosts aren't? Because she doesn't know that he's also half human. Oh man, it's good. It's sad. just by the sheer nature of its concept. But I think it was worth it. I definitely read it all, and that means something, I think.
Fair warning, it's sad, but it's not a sad ending. Like, nobody dies any more than they're already dead.
True. No humans that are half alive or otherwise die. Okay, so, B, what is your first one? I read this.
So the
Because
first
of
one I'm
you.
going to talk about is also from a cartoon. I don't know if that's going to be a running theme, but it's from the Road to El Dorado fandom, which, yes, I'm referencing the 2000 movie by DreamWorks, and it's called Confidence Artists by Faye. And I went into it going, kind of shrugging my shoulders, being, you know what? The Road to El Dorado has been around for a while. It's quite popular. I have to know, given the fact that it's got this really important homoplatonic relationship at the very minimum in this story. I want to know what people did to make it gayer. I just had to know. So I went in, and this is the first one that popped up, and I was like, sure, let's see what's going on here. And it's a story set after the movie where they've gone back to Spain with Chell, who is the Native American woman who kind of helps them run their con in the film. And they, of course, are broke, having just gotten back to Spain, and being confidence artists, the first thing they're going to do is try and run a con. Now, at the end of the movie, throughout the course of the movie, I should say, the Chell ends up becoming involved with the character Tulio, who's kind of the cautious one, and they're a pair. It's implied also at the end of the movie they're still a pair. But he has this really, really strong relationship with his fellow con artist, Miguel. And so in the story, I don't even feel like I'm spoiling it because it's such a character piece. The plot isn't super complicated. They get back to Spain and start trying to run this con to get money. And Chell is helping with that. And as they are running the con, she kind of is looking at these two in their more native environment and realizing there's some tension there. And there's some tension there because they kind of are in love with each other. And she thinks in her little head, well, more the merrier, right?
And could be into blondes.
Basically, she's like, well, I already tried to kind of seduce Miguel earlier, so, why not just add him in? And the boys, of course, being from, in 17th century Spain, get a little bit weird about it. So she finally cons them into getting together as they are also running this con.
I need to read this yesterday. This sounds amazing.
And it really is a character piece where I read it kind of late at night. And if you've ever done this, sometimes you read things and they make like a lot of sense in the moment there at 2 a.m. But you have to like check yourself and go, is this like a midnight emotion? Was this one of the secret emotions that you only unlock at a certain hour of the day? Or was this something that was really good? So I went back and reread it and I'm like, no, actually, this is surprisingly human in a way that I wasn't expecting. Like, I don't know, it's a really interesting
Especially
character
in that
piece.
Fandom.
Yeah, so I'm not in the fandom and have very limited interest in reading anything else, but I picked this up and went, oh, this is why this is the when you sort by kudos, this is number one.
You sent it to me and you were like, is this good?
Yeah, because I needed to verify it wasn't just secret emotions.
Yeah, and I read it and I'm not even into like thruples at all, but I quite liked it. And I thought it was quite good, especially for a 2000 cartoon film that is good. Oh, I also wanted to say the original script of that movie, Miguel and Tulio were supposed to be lovers.
Yes.
And they changed it because
I believe the voice actor of Miguel, Kenneth Branagh, I think it's Kenneth Branagh, kept saying, what's the plan, darling? And eventually they'd have to pull him aside. It's like, you can't say darling. They're Americans. Wrong audience.
Oh, so good. I will also say that Chell is not Native American. She's just a native.
Well, she's from the Americas, so she is a Native American.
She's a first American.
She's a first people, but she's a native of South America. I don't know how else to phrase it.
To be honest, she's from El Dorado. El Dorado isn't real. It literally just means the gold.
But it is also
the city
set in South America.
So let's just
She's
say
Nahuatl.
that she's South American and she's native.
Yeah, she's a native South American.
Yeah, there we go. There we go. But yeah, it's a really good fic. I'm really surprised, Misssampo, that you have not read it, because that seems like up your alley.
I know, which is why I'm like, I gotta get into this.
I
It
might have
sounds
thrown it at you
amazing.
at some point. I don't
Possibly,
remember.
and then it just got lost among all the tabs I have open.
As has probably becoming increasingly evident, if for those of you who have been listening a while, I have a tendency to like just distribute fics that I read like sprinkles. I'm like, here's some for you,
You
and
literally
here's some
do.
for you. So,
Oh, it's so you. Oh my gosh. Okay, Misssampo, your first one.
Oh boy.
And this one looks weird. Please let me know what this is, because I have no idea.
Okay. So, it's about a video game. Wow, who's shocked? No one. This video game's called Lisa. It's about trauma and sadness and the apocalypse. And this fic is about trauma and sadness and an apocalypse so apocalyptic it apocalypses the humanity out of existence. And yet it still, I would say, ends happily. Read it. It's really good. Read a wiki on Lisa lore if you feel like you need it, but honestly, you kind of don't. Civilization with only men, they all died after the last girl remaining, named Buddy Armstrong, killed them all. Because, you know, they were going to rape her. And so she's like, I'm going to descend into a drug-fueled rage and just murder everyone who could ever hurt me. And now the world is empty, and it's just her and her son and a bunch of mutants that just follow her around. And it's really good. I don't know what to say, man. This is existential and sad, and I cried when I first read it, and I cried last time I read it. It's really good. Bring tissues if you're going to read it.
that
Wow.
sounds so deeply weird.
It is. And this is it is just like the El Dorado one, the most popular one in the Lisa fandom, and I really am not interested in any other Lisa stuff, because either I'm like, this is uncomfortable, or I'm not interested in these characters, sorry, I know, but I just care about Buddy. I want to know more about Buddy Armstrong, and oh boy, did we learn about Buddy Armstrong in this one. It's called Cheer Up by Courier New, and oh my gosh. That's what I got. If you look at the comments, you'll see my cry typing.
Oh man. Okay. Okay, does anybody remember the 1994 film The Shawshank Redemption?
I know of it.
Yes.
Oh, okay. Wow, Misssampo, you haven't watched it?
I haven't watched so many things.
Mm-hmm.
That's my favorite movie of all time. Shawshank Redemption is my favorite movie of all time.
My favorite movie of all time is Lady Hawk. That should tell you about my taste.
There we go. Shawshank Redemption is, I think it's still number 1 on IMDb, so that should tell you about how basic I am. But it is such a good film, and the last time I watched it, I realized there has to be fic about this movie. And I looked it up, and there was some fic. And I kind of scrolled through, and I found this one. Zihuatanejo is Not Heaven by irisbleufic. Oh man, if you know the film, I'm so sorry if this is going to be spoilery for you, because the movie is beautiful. And I love it. The one problem with it, the only problem with it I have found, is that there are no women characters. Like, no female characters. There's one female character. She is shot at the beginning of the film, and that is it. There are no other female characters that even speak or even on the screen. That's the only thing that's the problem with the movie. But if you take that aside, the movie is beautiful. So please go watch it. Stop this right now and go watch that movie. But if you have, please continue listening, because I'm about to tell you about this fic. Zihuatanejo is the place that Red and Andy Dufresne, Andy and Red. So Andy is the main character of the film, and he tells Red to do all of these things at the end of the film in order to meet at Zihuatanejo in Mexico. This fic is essentially them falling in love in Zihuatanejo, and the title is It's Not Heaven, because it really it gets into what life is like for them in Mexico. And obviously it's exponentially better than being in jail or being in prison, but it is definitely still work to live. But it's about these two older guys who are in love in Mexico, and it's just lovely. It's not canon in the movie, but like, what's gonna happen when you guys, is it gay? when you,
Fellas, is it
when
gay?
fellas, is it gay when you get out of prison and the first thing you do is break your parole and go to Mexico and like find your friend that you've known for 20 years 19 years and live with him and build a boat and
just a tiny bit.
it's just tiny things that you do with your whole life. And it's really good. It's the only fic I've read of the Shawshank Redemption stuff, but like I finished it and I was like, this is the only work I need. This is exactly the kind of fic I wanted to read after watching that movie that I have loved since I was like 15. And it's like just an extension of the actual, it's basically in canon, like extended, and it's really good. It's really, really lovely. Anyway, B, what's your next one?
So my next one is from the Sailor Moon fandom, which is older than Danny fandom. It is early internet fandom stuff, which in my experience of trying to get into the fandom, because the reason there's one that I've read is not for lack of trying, it's that there's something about it that I try and read it and then I'm like, ooh, ouch, ooh, that's very early. And part of that I think is because it was early internet fandom. I get the feeling that a lot of work in the fandom has been lost, because there are a handful that I have looked up and they're like, these are the ones to read, these are the really good ones, and some of them still have their own sites that exist, but a lot of them are just poof, like can't find them. But the one that this one is on AO3, so it was easy to find, and it's called "Growing Up We Watched the Stars" by Shania Nack. Shana Nack. I'm gonna go with that.
Shayna. Maybe Shayna.
Shayna Nack. Okay.
Shayna Nack.
We'll go with that. And it's not very long, but it's essentially taking the plot of the first season of Sailor Moon and saying, okay, what if instead of the main character Usagi being kind of whiny and ridiculous and over the top and lazy, what if she actually did do what Luna said from the get-go and like buckled down and tried to get things done and was serious? What if that is the way the story went? And it's interesting because as they go on, you can see Usagi still being overwhelmed and still being stressed and still encountering the same personalities and issues, but kind of just internalizing it a little bit more and a little bit differently. And then the weird, interesting thing is, and again, spoilers for people who haven't watched Sailor Moon, it's not complicated. It's exactly what you think. But at the end of season 1, they end up fighting this particular bad guy who is, secrets are revealed, people are kidnapped, but Usagi ends up sort of overcoming it enough that things mostly return to status quo and get set up for the second season. But at the end of this fic, it's actually kind of tragic, like because she's more competent and serious, things actually don't end super great, which is interesting and weird. But it's a fun little piece that you don't have to know a ton about Sailor Moon to be like, oh, that's cute, but also weird. And I guess it's somewhat an argument in favor of Usagi continuing to be a crybaby. Again, it's a character piece. It makes more sense when you read it.
The words Sailor Moon and character piece never entered my head in the same sentence, but now I'm interested. Okay.
Oh, man.
My next one's very silly. It is for the fandom Bram Stoker's Dracula, 1982. Here's the thing about the movie, Bram Stoker's Dracula, directed by Francis Ford Coppola. I hate it. I hate it so much, because I am a big fan of the book Dracula. It is my favorite classic horror book. And the fact that this movie dares to call itself Bram Stoker's Dracula, when it is nothing of the sort, it has no respect for Mina, no respect for Lucy, for the characters. They made Dracula sexy and tried to be like, oh, he's gonna fuck Mina because she's reincarnated wife. Bullshit. I hate so much hatred. However, this fic is called Affable Stoner Jonathan Harker by Robber Baroness. And the premise is that at one point, Robert Baroness commented that Keanu Reeves, who plays Jonathan Harker in this movie, looks perpetually stoned throughout the entire movie, and someone's like, oh, you should write that. And then this happened, and it is the funniest shit ever, and it's the only way I can see that movie, while also constantly razzing it with friends, is that Jonathan is just stoned out of his gourd on, like, old-timey Victorian medicine, and so with everything happening and he just vaguely looks around, that's just because he is floating with the pink elephants now. He has no idea what's happening. And it's awesome.
If you've seen this movie, it actually makes a really tragic amount of sense.
It does.
Like, this was not
Wow.
Keanu's best role by a long shot.
He even admits it himself. And it's like, oh, Mr. Reeves. But also, it turns at least the parts of the movie where Mr. Jonathan Harker's on screen into a comedy. Because it is, how long will it take before this dumbass, who just can't see straight right now, will figure out that something's up with this man with the terrible hair that looks like a cock and balls.
Yeah, this movie was not subtle or tasteful.
No, it made Lucy Westenra have sex with a werewolf. Why? There will never be any answers. I hate it.
I mean, I'm down to see that.
I hope you enjoy it then, but I wasn't.
I want to see it now. I haven't seen it before.
Watch it with intoxicants.
Oh man.
Or at
Sounds
least
good.
really
Yeah.
late. My version of intoxicants.
Or both.
That too.
Or both. My third one. So this is from a book that a lot of people have not read, I'm assuming, because I had never heard of it until I met Bea. This is the half recommended thing I was talking about earlier this episode. Bea recommended this book to me called A Brother's Price by Wen Spencer.
This book is so good, you guys go read it.
Yeah, it's really good. All three of us have happened to read it. I think it's because of Bea.
Yes, it is.
Because
I'm
of
starting a
Bea's
cult.
mother, in my case, but still, Bea.
Uh-huh. Okay, so the book is not for everybody, but if you like fic, I think you would really like this book because it is about gender and kind of gender fuckery just a little bit.
I'd say more gender politics.
Yeah, okay, it's more gender politics. Yes, I agree with you. But the book itself, the fiction itself is kind of, it's talking about gender, obviously. So it's in a world where like 10% of all babies born are men and the rest are women. I think it's like 10%.
A very small percentage.
A very small percentage of people are men and most of the people are women. So the society that they have is completely different. Essentially, men are bought and sold to be the man in a family that kind of takes on more of a what we would consider a motherly role in our society, and like has sex with all of the sisters of a family, because a family wants to have as many kids as possible in order to have a boy to sell. It sounds insane when you're talking about it, but the book itself is really quite good.
No, the world building is incredible in this book. You slide right in.
It's incredibly detailed, and you definitely aren't as confused as what I'm trying to say right now, as what I'm trying to describe right now. It's a really good book. But A Gentle Touch by ambyr. I don't know. A Gentle Touch by ambyr in the Brothers Price fandom is the best one that I have found so far, and I think it might even be the only one I've read. But I really liked it enough to not read anymore. It is essentially just kind of a slice of life, almost moment of the main character's life, because the main character is a dude. and I don't know, it's really sweet. And if you've read the book, if it would be astronomically crazy if somebody who's listening to this podcast also read that book and like was like, oh, I should read this fic because of that. That'd be crazy. But if that happens to be you, then go read this fic because it's very sweet, and it's just kind of a little bit of an extension to the story. I highly recommend it, and I didn't read any more because none of the other ones looked good. There's only like 12 on AO3. It's not that big of a book. It's really not that big of a fandom. It's one of the smallest fandoms I've ever seen. Okay, so B.
Okay.
Actually, B, what do you think of that book, though?
Of A Brother's Price?
I know that. I mean, you recommended it to us, but like,
I read it.
Are you gonna read that fic?
Me? I don't know. The book I read at a formative time in my life where the questions it asks of the way we approach gender and society, or how our society approaches the roles that we assign genders, yeah, it definitely flipped my world on its head a little bit. So if you want something that really makes you squint hard at how we treat gender in our society, this is definitely one of those books that'll do it.
Also, everyone in this book is a cowboy.
Mm-hmm.
It's a book where it's a monarchy, cowboy kingdom, queendom. That should sell it right there.
The female characters are so...
They're like all of them.
Complex.
There's like 2 men in the entire book.
Yes.
No, I think there are 4. One of them is a side character who dies. One of them is a baby who is basically not addressed ever again and we don't care about. Oh, no, wait, 5. One of them is his grandfather who we address as part of the world building. And then there are 2 that actually get names and personalities. So, you know, like how most fictional women are treated.
Exactly.
Yes! And it's so amazing. It's like incredibly realistic the way that she wrote this world, because most of the people who are going to be interacting with each other are women, obviously. And oh man, you're reading it and you're just like, this is like the opposite like radio activity of my life. Like this is just like the underlying truth of my life as a woman in this society, but for him. And it's just, oh my god,
it asks some very serious questions about our society by flipping things on its head.
And especially when it came out, like wasn't it like a 90s novel?
Nah, it was early odds.
Exactly. It could have been like 2004, something along those lines. In media, everything about what the book was saying was true. I'm glad to say that media has gotten a little bit better, but not that much. It's still a really good read. Go and read the book.
And if anyone's curious, it was published in 2005 by Wen Spencer.
Early odds.
Nice.
So
nice. Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
So my last one is in the Wonder Woman fandom, which I am taking as a separate fandom because this one specifically is related to the film, not the greater DC universe, because I obviously read a fair amount of Batman, but I'm putting that in a separate category. And this is called Under Rich Relentless Skies by Shakespeare. And it is set as kind of a coda to the film where, spoilers for the film, at the end Steve Trevor dies. And in this, Steve Trevor is completely inexplicably transported from the point of his death to a field in the middle of France 100 years later exactly. So 2017 or something. And he has no idea what's going on. And Diana is off doing something else, obviously. So it's this really interesting story where he's sort of catching up and displaced, and he doesn't really speak French very well, but he's trying to figure out what's going on, because why is he here? And eventually he ends up being able to meet up with Diana, and it's not very long, but it's this really sweet little coda where you're like, oh, Steve Trevor comes back, and no, we're never going to explain why or how, but he gets to have her. I mean, or she gets to have him.
She gets her Chris Pine.
It's really cute. So
Everybody deserves their Chris Pine.
Yes.
if you were sad at the end of that movie, this is the thing that'll fix it for you.
Oh.
And I have no idea why I haven't read more in this fandom, other than the fact that I just haven't. I don't know. The film was beautiful. It needed nothing else.
Exactly. It's kind of my reason why I haven't read, even though I absolutely adore that movie, I haven't read fic from that. I'm like, no, it's great. It's perfect. But now I gotta read that one. That one specifically. Oh.
Yeah, you know, I'm gonna read this right now.
This is just recommendation hour because we've openly admitted you don't need to be in the fandom. You just need to read this one.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, it's not complicated for most of these.
No, it really isn't. Okay, Misssampo, what is this one?
Okay.
This looks cool.
It is called Lost in the Woods from Dirge Without Music. I'm really into mythology. Mythology I'm specifically into is a folktale. This folktale is called Robin Hood. I'm really freaking into Robin Hood. This is about Maid Marian in the Robin Hood mythos as a concept. It's like, it feels like a prose poem that just talks about the many facets and ways Maid Marian can be portrayed in retellings of Robin Hood. And I love it. It's gorgeous. It's meta stuff about mythology. It's beautiful. It just talks about Maid Marian and all the ways she can be portrayed and like the core of her character. And I love it. It's beautiful. Is there anything more I must say? I love it. Oh, here's something to say. Here's a recommendation. If you want to hear the best Robin Hood story, Marian by Ella Leons. It's about lesbians. It's about Maid Marian, and she's in lesbian with a lesbian Robin Hood who is a lesbian.
Is there a reason why you haven't read more Robin Hood fic?
They just haven't called to me like this one fic about Maid Marian.
Because there's a huge preponderance of just people who actually publish Robin Hood fic, like
as a book.
Outlaws of Sherwood by Robin McKinley. It's just it's a
Robin
retelling of Robin Hood.
Robin Hood is in the public domain, therefore it's all fic. Therefore I have no patience for people who are like, it's not real literature, it's fan fiction. Do you know how much real literature is fan fiction? Most of it.
If you want to hear more about that, we have an episode.
Yes, we do.
Called Your Ancestors Liked Fic Too. That's a fun episode. Yeah. Okay, thank you. Thank you for the 2 recs. Super fun. Okay, my last one, which is my favorite one out of all of these because it's just the most incredibly sweetest thing you'll ever read. So, does anybody remember the 1993 film The Sandlot?
Nope.
Wait, you haven't seen it?
No.
Oh my god.
I haven't seen anything.
You guys have exactly divergent interest groups in terms of media consumption. That's why this works so well, remember?
Yes.
That's true. That's true. Okay, so wait, Bea, have you seen it?
Yeah, I've seen The Sandlot.
Yeah. Who hasn't, Misssampo?
Me.
So this film it was one of the earliest films I ever watched. Like when I was a wee babe. A wee bairn. So it's about baseball. And if the people who are listening don't know this about me, I love baseball. It's definitely my favorite sport. I love the story behind it. It's just about life, kind of. And if you love baseball, you'll understand what I mean. You go to it's not called an arena, it's called a baseball park. You just kind of hang out there and you can watch the game, or you can get up and go get a hot dog, or you can walk around the park, or you can hear the bat get hit by that ball, and it's just the most amazing thing. And
if you're lucky, the ball hits you in the head.
If you're lucky, yeah, absolutely. And then you get a bunch of money because you can sue the team. Though suing is very good, actually. Suing is really good for the protection of people. Anyway, so the movie, The Sandlot, is just about a group of young boys in the 50s playing baseball together during the summer. And everybody, and I mean everybody, who watched this movie when they were a kid had a crush on Benny the Jet Rodriguez. He was the fastest, definitely the cutest kid on the team when, in the movie. And some people have wondered if the main character, who is not Benny, had a crush on Benny the Jet Rodriguez as well. Scott. So Scotty and Benny fall in love in this fic when they get older. And it's called From Beginning to ... by atlanticslide. And there are 4 parts or 5 parts to it, and I just remember I read it all of them in probably 30 minutes. It's not that long of a fic, and the parts after are not that long either. And I just could not deal with how absolutely adorable it is, because it just kind of goes through their life as people. And I don't know, man, it's such a good ship. It's actually so sweet. And it made me so happy. Baseball is a big part of their life because Benny becomes a professional baseball and it just kind of felt like the thing that Bea was talking about earlier, where a convergence happened. I watched it late at night after I watched the movie again as an adult, and it worked. It worked for me. So if you really like that movie, then I think you'll really like this, because it is yet again. Wow, I have 3 fics in here that are just continuations of the story. That's interesting. Because it is yet again a continuation of the film, essentially. So,
That sounds
anyway,
really cute.
Yes, and you should. I mean, the movie's, when you're a kid, it's perfect, but when you're an adult, you're like, it's fine. But you just watch it and then read it. It's really good. Yeah. Okay. Bea, you don't have any others, but Misssampo, you do.
Yes, I have one more. It is an X-Men one. I don't know why this is my only X-Men one, except for I kind of do. And it's that I only care about one X-Man. His name is Kurt Wagner. It's the only X-Man for me. And he only shows up in one movie, except for the other one that he's in, but I haven't watched that one. Not super a fan. Look, I'm not into the First Class. I'm not really into anyone else except for Kurt. But this fic, it's Kurt and Logan. It's called More Than Genetics by Lleden Vertgifnash. I'm definitely saying that wrong. I'm not Welsh. But it's an AU after the first X-Men movie, where Logan is motorcycling around Canada and stumbles upon a circus with a freak show, and in the cage is a mutant. He's blue, and he's Kurt. He's Kurt Wagner. And Logan breaks him out, and then they go on a Canadian road trip, and gay shit eventually happens. And it is the most ever. And I love it. My heart. My everything. Ah! There's nothing else I could say. It's gay road trip time with our favorite bear, Logan, and our favorite acrobatic blue boy, Kurt. It's gorgeous.
Isn't that canon in a comic?
For a given value.
There is one comic where they spend the entire night up getting drunk and talking about life, and it's very, like, sweet, and they walk home with their arms around each other as the sun rises, and you're like, aww. But the cover shows Logan sitting at a table with a beer bottle positioned suggestively over his crotch, and you see Kurt from the back, only he's completely naked, and you just see, like, his back and, like, a supple ass cheek. Yep. Oh. So there are some implications.
Man, I hate being single. Anyway,
so does Logan, and that's why he and Kurt bang.
Oh man. Okay. Well, that was it.
Mm-hmm.
If you have listened to this entire episode, we applaud you. Okay.
Good job.
Good.
This is what it's like to be in a sleepover with us.
We have never had a sleepover, but
I mean,
that is so that. Holy shit.
This is big sleepover energy.
Yes, it really is. I am definitely in my pajamas right now. So.
Oh yeah.
Well, there really isn't much else to say except for, if any of those fics sounded interesting to you, go ahead and read them. All of them are going to be in the show notes. So
yes.
If you
It's
guys
gonna be
have more recs from these fandoms that you're like, okay, you missed this gem, we would love to hear that too.
Yes.
Yes.
They have an email.
Send us an
Email it to them, and then they'll give them to me, and I can read
Yeah.
them.
If you have any other recs from Danny Phantom, Shawshank Redemption, A Brother's Price, The Sandlot, The Road to El Dorado, Sailor Moon, Wonder Woman, Lisa, Bram Stoker's Dracula, Robin Hood, or the X-Men, please email us at mmbpresentedpeople.com. Oh man. But if you don't, go read the ones that we've just wrecked. So I think we are done.
Yeah, so I guess we'll see y'all next week on
Fangirls Anonymous. Bye.